Well, the comment section on this one is certainly going to be fun. Welcome to Supplemental. This is my more loosely scripted show, something halfway between a podcast and a vlog. Today we're talking about Gene Roddenberry and why I believe we should no longer refer to him as the creator of Star Trek. Now, this may seem completely blasphemous to many and outright incorrect to others, but stick with me here because I don't think it's as cut and dry as some people may think. Allow me to explain my reasoning. First of all, however, a shameless plug. It seems a lot of folks still don't know I have other channels aside from this one. An entertainment channel called Grindhouse Media, where myself and friends talk about movies and shows aside from just Star Trek, although I do sometimes force them to watch things like that anyway. Our primary series is the Watch Party series, where we riff on movies and TV episodes for a laugh. Everything from infamously bad to complete schlock, and even movies we actually like as well. I also have a gaming channel called SideQuest, in which we do video essays, gameplays, and coming soon, some reviews. Both of these channels are still early days, but it's been really fun experimenting with the kind of content we produce on them. There's lots of good stuff coming in the new year, so be sure to follow the links below and subscribe so you can be the first to watch. With that out of the way, let's jump into the video. In my retrospective review series, I've decided to refer to Gene Roddenberry as the creator of the concept of Star Trek. But when it comes to the creation of Star Trek as a series, which has become the franchise we know today, I believe there are two others who should share equal credit. But let's get a few things straight in terms of what Gene Roddenberry for certain created. The 23rd century setting, the general mission of the SS Yorktown, later changed to the Enterprise, Captains Robert April, Christopher Pike, and James Kirk, Number 1, Spock, Sulu, and Chekhov, as well as the warp drive and transporters. Uhura was originally going to be a character called David Bailey, but both Nichelle Nichols and Roddenberry collaborated to create the character of Uhura instead. Scotty, in the original script for the second pilot, was an unnamed chief engineer. It was James Doohan who created the name and made the character Scottish. So to recap, what Roddenberry for sure created was, in the 23rd century, a peaceful humanity sends the starship Enterprise/Yorktown on a mission of exploration using warp drive and transporter technologies crewed by the characters of Captain Kirk/Pike/April, Spock and/or Number 1, with Sulu and later Chekhov. These are the elements of Star Trek which Roddenberry for sure created unassisted. Now, although iconic, this is a pretty vague general concept for what we know of as Star Trek today, and this is why the two people I believe who should be given equal credit as the creators of Star Trek are Gene L. Coon and DC Fontana. To help illustrate where I'm going with this, I have to bring up Batman, Bob Kane, and Bill Finger. Stick with me here. Now, for the longest time, Bob Kane was credited as the sole creator of Batman. You see this in the end credits of most Batman movies. However, starting with Batman v Superman, this credit was changed to Batman created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Now, the reason Bob Kane was thought of as the sole creator of Batman for the longest time was because he came up with the name Batman, the costume design, and the general format of crime fighter by night, playboy by day. However, it was Bill Finger who actually wrote most of the first Batman stories, and basically directed the artists, helping come up with the look of Batman's world, not to mention also creating the Batmobile, Batcave, Joker, Penguin, and many other elements. If you remove Bill Finger's contributions to Batman, you'd still have a character called Batman who looks like Batman, but you wouldn't have the character or the stories we know and love today, and I think you can see where I'm going with this. Most of Gene Roddenberry's actual writing credits on Star Trek the original series are story-by credits, but when it comes to actual stories he wrote himself, he only wrote 4 episodes, and that's being generous considering the Menagerie Parts 1 and 2 are really just framing devices to repeat the cage. DC Fontana and Gene L. Coon, on the other hand, wrote 6 episodes each, plus story-by credits and collaborative scripts. But on top of that, they had a big say in terms of the general creative direction of the show. There's a reason Star Trek is often called the wagon train to the stars. It's not a vague comparison to the Western genre. It's actually a very specific reference to the show Wagon Train, which Gene L. Coon was essentially the showrunner on. Gene Coon brought the wagon train format to Star Trek, as well as its social and political allegory style of storytelling, something which is often thought of as a cornerstone of the Star Trek franchise. Gene Coon also created the United Federation of Planets, Starfleet, the Klingons, the Prime Directive, Zefram Cochrane, Khan Noonien Singh, as well as doing rewrites for a lot of more scripts. Now, the same can't be said for every one of the elements I just listed, but just like with Bill Finger's contributions to Batman, remove Gene Coon's contributions to Star Trek, and it really wouldn't be Star Trek anymore. Then there's DC Fontana, who worked as script editor on the show. Now, if you don't know, the job of a script editor is to basically give notes and do rewrites to submitted scripts to make sure they're in line with the show's Bible, making sure the characters act the way they should and other established elements work the way they do. It's one thing to create a character's name in their brief, but DC Fontana was a key figure in actually giving these characters a life and a voice. It's thanks to her the character dynamics between Kirk, Spock and McCoy remained consistent throughout those 3 seasons, even after she left. Again, if we were to remove her contributions to Star Trek, it wouldn't be the same show. And honestly, you can't really say the same for Gene Roddenberry's contributions. For example, shows like The Orville demonstrate to us that other series can take the general Star Trek pitch which Roddenberry created and make it into something new, basically by swapping some words around and giving the designs a facelift. Now, obviously, however, if you removed a Gene Roddenberry, there's no Star Trek whatsoever. So of course, I'm not saying he should ever be dismissed outright in that way. But that's why I think of Roddenberry as the creator of the Star Trek concept, rather than the creator of Star Trek. Now, some may ask, based on the logic I'm using here, wouldn't I also have to give equal credit to Rick Berman, Michael Piller, Brandon Braga, Ira Stephen Bear, and so on and so forth, all the key creative staff of TNG, DS9 and so on? But the reason I don't think it's appropriate to give equal credit to all of those people is because all of the shows and movies which came after the original series are building on the foundation of Star Trek, the original series, which remember was just called Star Trek in the 60s. Everything afterwards was building on top of that, or attempting to replicate it, or reacting to what was first established collectively by these 3 people. Now, a quick comparison to help illustrate my point further in terms of who I think should be credited as the creator of their respective franchises. For example, whenever I criticize Gene Roddenberry in videos, the comment section is always quick to lump in George Lucas with him, and I don't think that's really fair, to be honest, because George Lucas absolutely deserves the title of creator of Star Wars, whether you think he's a good writer or not. Now, Lucas conjured the entire Star Wars universe, the Empire, Rebellion, Republic, Jedi, Sith, the planets, all the characters. He wrote or co-wrote 5 out of the 6 movies before the franchise was sold to Disney. He created everything in the original and prequel trilogies and executed those ideas as well. Another example is J. Michael Straczynski. He is absolutely the creator of Babylon 5. Straczynski, like Lucas, came up with the universe, he named everything in it, he crafted every alien society, every character, mapped out all the stories, ran the show, and wrote 92 out of the 110 episodes of Babylon 5 by himself, which is absolutely insane. George Lucas and J. Michael Straczynski absolutely deserve their created by credits for Star Wars and Babylon 5. But with Roddenberry, I don't agree. Roddenberry came up with many core elements of Star Trek's premise, but many more key elements of the universe were created by Gene Coon, and DC Fontana cemented the creative vision of the show, as well as lent the characters their voices. So, from now on, I believe that's how we should refer to the franchise. Star Trek, created by Gene Roddenberry, Gene Coon, and DC Fontana. I think that has a nice ring to it, personally. Equalium, hope I'm saying that right, asks, how do you think a TV crossover between Star Trek and Doctor Who could be done? So, if you don't follow me on Twitter, I recently discovered that at some point there were talks going on between some producers of Star Trek Enterprise and Russell T. Davies, who is the showrunner for Doctor Who when it first came back, about a possible crossover, which blew my mind, especially since I'm a big fan of that era of Doctor Who. Unfortunately, the talks never really got anywhere because unfortunately Enterprise was cancelled and the entire Star Trek franchise kind of died for a few years. I know there's an IDW comic, I think, where Matt Smith's Doctor crosses over with the Enterprise D, although I haven't read that. If you're asking me how I would think it would work legally between the two companies, I have no idea. But as a story concept, I think it's a really fun idea. I think it's two really interesting franchises to have meet. And because, Doctor Who's timey-wimey and they go all over the place and all that, and cross dimensions, there's a way to work it in and have both universes exist. There's 1,000 ways it could be done. The Doctor in their stories is often the smartest person in the room, and usually way ahead of their companions or the other supporting characters. So with the Star Trek crossover, I actually think it would be really fun to have the Doctor encounter a group of people who are actually on their level. I think the characters could interact in really fun ways, like the Enterprise crew would probably be able to figure out quite quickly that the Doctor is an alien, the TARDIS is a time machine, and how it's bigger on the inside and all that kind of stuff, which could possibly bruise the Doctor's ego, as they often like to be the one to show off, so that could be fun. It would also be cool to see Star Trek's villains crossover with Doctor Who's villains and have the story a kind of comment on both franchises in cool ways. There's lots which could be done, and I'd love to see that, although I highly doubt it would ever happen. Thank you for watching. If you like these videos, subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on my new uploads. If you want to help the channel grow, join my patrons or my YouTube members, where you can see videos early as well as some other exclusive content. Speaking of which, I'd like to quickly thank all of my patrons and members who are now appearing on screen. Have a good one, and as always, live long and prosper.